G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 8th of November 2025. I'm your host, the author, David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood of Cade, Power Games, Into the Earthbound, and The Erotic Tales from the Empire. Part 1 out now, Part 2 coming soon. Thank you to all those who support the channel. If you would like to support the channel, all my links are in the link tree. Now, of course, the war continues, and the war is fought on multiple fronts, not excluding, and primarily, I believe, in the media. And, of course, both sides put out file images every day. Now, the Tornado is a self-propelled multiple rocket system. It has been the mainstay of Russian rocket artillery, and you can tell by the truck this was designed a long time ago. And it's still in service. A lot of these are actual 1960s trucks. Some of these are veterans of the Afghan war. Not the personnel, the equipment. However, the 122mm, which was featured in the Iraqi army, did not perform well in multiple wars. I think this is the first time since World War II that the Russian rocket forces have been highly effective. I don't know what it is that's changed. I mean, the rocket forces in World War II may have been overstated, but definitely the rocket forces are definitely making an impact this time round, and are used by both sides. I think I forget the name of the Ukrainian system, but it's not Ukrainian, it's actually a Polish system. But the mainstay of the Polish army is the Crab self-propelled, and it's actually a 153mm. Although I've heard rumours recently that they are looking to convert to 155 to NATO rounds as part of standardisation. This hasn't been confirmed. There's talk about it, but it hasn't been confirmed. Now, Ukrainian forces, of course, they have struck back at Russians, and, well, from yesterday. And, of course, today the Russians struck back at the Ukrainians. And we all know that in a few hours, Ukraine is going to launch more attacks again. And the war of words continues, sanctions continues, the sanctions packages have changed. Now, Greece has agreed to switch to US liquefied natural gas starting in 2030. So, Russian oil on Indian carriers is still being delivered to parts of Greece and Turkey and Hungary. Hungary's got an exemption for a year. Greece has until 2030. The Turks are probably never going to stop using Russian gas and oil, although they have bought from other sources as well. What you may read in the headlines, and if you only read the headlines or you only watch the first 5 minutes of a YouTube, you'll never get fully informed or find out where you've been misled. Although, if we look at the ratings for most mainstream media, I think most people have realised that they've been misled. I think the only people who watch CNN are the people who watch headlines. And I mean, CNN is telling you Trump's up by 3 points. Trust me, it's up by 6. Now, Viktor Orban has talked with Trump about many things today, but the only thing we've been reported so far is the discussion on Russian oil and an exemption for his importing of Russian gas. Remember, they have an entire ecosystem to support. Russian gas and oil is different viscosity. Don't forget, US gas is actually liquefied petroleum gas. It's not the same. It's not the same density, which means Hungary has got to do a lot to, and they don't have the money to change the infrastructure, and the EU won't help them out. Now, France, of course, is struggling. Germany is struggling. And, of course, Zelensky's not helping by trying to pressure Orban to stop the fact that Hungary's Orban is blocking Ukraine's EU bid. But Orban is right. The rules are clear. You cannot have territorial claims, and you cannot be at war. You cannot join the EU so that you can have the Europeans come in, save your pathetic ass, and then turn around and say, "Oh no, we're not going to. Now that we're part of the EU, we don't have to abide by any of your rules because we want to go our own way now." This is what happened with the independent states, right? Ukraine was supposed to be an independent state and decided to go its own way and declare full neutrality after getting all that money and investment from China. Then they tried to go along with trade deals with India. Ukraine has used everybody, okay? For decades, Ukraine has used Russia. Russia got sick of Ukraine. They tried to... Now, trying to explain this to most people seems to run into a wall of resentment. Okay? But we can go back to Zelensky's own words in 2019 when he mocked the then president and said that Ukraine's foreign policy is to use and discard allies and to borrow money and never repay their debts. You can look it up because it's actually in Ukrainian. It's copyrighted. I'm sorry. I believe if you go to YouTube and type in is it Zelensky campaign speech mocks Ukraine? I think that's what it's called. I think it's from the Times of India. I'm not sure, but I think it was 2019 when Zelensky was not president and starting to run for president. He told a lot of truths. He even promised to make peace with Russia. People don't seem to believe me because these videos are copyrighted. I can't show them to you. Zelensky won't allow it. He won't allow his old speeches to be broadcast. Now, if somebody's broadcasting them, they obviously have a waiver or they don't care about the copyright strikes. I'm not going to risk it. Because when you upload it, you actually get a warning. This may contain copyrighted material. Okay? Now, it's not because Zelensky's in it, okay? I've shown his face before. It is definitely some speeches have a copyright on them. Now, I do know that Zelensky did a lot of stand-up in which he mocked. There's plenty of Zelensky comedy mocking of different Ukrainian leaders over time. And I think that's when he was at his most honest. I mean, everybody goes through an honest... Even the most dishonest people do go through honest phases. You go through Putin's early speeches, how he distrusted the West but thought he could build bridges. So that gives you an idea where people stand. They are usually at their most honest when they're their most vulnerable at the start of their careers. They only become seasoned liars over time. And usually it's to guard against the gotcha moments of the media. Because they don't want someone like me, you, or anybody else pointing out that in the past they had a different policy. Now, I don't have the exact timing, but if you look it up, there's no successful strike on Russia from Ukraine. There's a air defense alert and a missile or drone shot down up here near on the power plant. Now it says Kursk, but that's way north of Kursk. I think somebody's made a mistake because it's way north of Moscow and Kursk is down here. But there was also a second story that 40 minutes ago, drones were downed on their way to the power plant at Kursk. So my guess is the original. My guess is they could have been jammed and just went on for a long time, and the second wave was shot down because they probably got through the jamming. But that's just a guess, okay? I always try to point out when I'm guessing, because you don't always know from a story the full facts. Now, as we go around the map, we can see there are drone strikes on parts of Kiev and other parts of Ukraine. Now, a gas facility was hit at ProWritingAid with both drones and missiles. Another one at Sumy. The explosion was at Konotop. Now there's fighting along the buffer zone as usual. Now Kharkiv hadn't been hit for a while. Now the outskirts of Kharkiv have been hit. Now it's believed this was actually a convoy of Ukrainian troops, and that Ukrainian troops concentrated in Mifta were also hit. And that's not the only place. Now, we zoom out a little bit, and we also find that troop concentrations and depots and power stations and air defences were hit in 3 different locations, with a ground-launched cruise missile, which is larger than an air-launched cruise missile, hitting the power plant at Kremosk, and short time later, as the city was blacked out, parts of the city were hit by cruise missiles too, with also multiple drones hitting a Ukrainian convoy with drones heading out of the town. Now, this is according to the... now, I'm getting parts of the story from Ukraine side and parts of the story from the Russian side. The Ukrainians admit also to multiple locations in Dnipro being hit by the Russians, including power facilities, and drones hitting facilities at Pavlograd, with a explosion at a location. The hydro plant was hit at Zaporizhzhia. Now, this plant has been hit multiple times. Plant was hit a month ago. It was allegedly under repair. Now, the actual dam wasn't hit. It's the building. Okay? Now, according to eyewitnesses, the drone nosedived through the top of the hydroelectric building at the bottom of the dam. Just went straight down, and the explosion soared straight up past the dam. But when you look up the explosion, they actually show you the one from 22, not the one from a month ago or the one from now. But there was this plant apparently has been hit 5 times, and when you're going through it, each filed story has the same 2022 photo. So, and also some of these also have the same file photo from previous. Now you might say, oh, that's the Russians. No, that's the media, because it's neither Russia nor Ukraine publishing the story. The Guardian, Reuters, I kept finding the same images over and over again. You can go to Google, you see the CNN, etc. They're all 2022 stories. As you look for explosions in Ukraine, you either given 2022 stories, and you can set the time limit, and they'll still return the same results. Google is definitely ignoring what you input and giving, trying to manipulate the results to what they want you to look at, which includes older stories, which you told it to exclude. It's ignoring you. The Google AI is deliberately ignoring my inputs and requests. Now, Mykolaiv, it's believed again, Ukraine has claimed a residence was hit, but then they changed the story to just explosions reported. So I don't know what's happened there. I think probably it's a combination of maybe a residence was hit by one drone, but then they've had explosions since, and so they've just shortened it. It does happen. Like when somebody's inputting, they might have actually written over the previous story by mistake. Because I don't think the Ukrainians would erase a story about a residential building hit by Russia on purpose. Unless, of course, it was wrong and they got told to fix it. But I don't think so, because there is file footage of a building being hit. Now, again, that could be because it's not a residence, and somebody pointed out that it is an office building. And again, if you look at some of the office building in Ukraine, you have to sometimes look twice to see whether or not it's an office building or a residence, because so many are built to the same brick, the same brick, same design. Some of their residences are pathetic, they're less than 120 square meters, or 120, I forget what it is in feet. Now, fighting has resumed in Kupiansk. They have not said the fate of the Ukrainians encircled in this, encircled in this trapped area. We don't know how many surrendered, how many got out, but there is allegedly some who have escaped down this road. Others, there's fighting. I think both sides have moved on and not going to talk about it anymore, because they're more focused, although the fall of Kupiansk has deeply embarrassed Zelensky, and he is replacing, as we speak, a new air defense commander, apparently, although that's not been confirmed. But as we go around the map, there is fighting in several areas. Now, Russia again has failed to make a breakthrough towards Lyman. They have not broken the lines at Seversk. They've broken the first, but not the second. They're still on the outskirts of the city, although this could be the third line. Nobody's really sure. I think the Ukrainians said second line, and the Russians claim to have broken through the third line. But again, if they broke through the third line, they would be in the city. I think, however, the translation is because they often cram stories. If you ever seen Russian Telegram, it's like, 38 stories, and like they're all crammed into a box, So you got multiple towns, we break through in blah, 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 blah. Fighting in blah, 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 blah. It's like very short, like a battlefield report, somebody's typing it on their phone really quickly. Now, no breakthrough in Kursk. The fighting on the road is is degenerating as the Russians are trying to seize at control of the road junction. Obviously, that would stop reinforcements to both here and here. They've cut most of this off, but have failed to break through. Now, I would say it's the second line. And here they've broken through the third line. They're in the town. So, if they've broken through... same with Kupiansk. They've broken through the third line in Kupiansk as well. Now, I think in Kupiansk, the Ukrainians are slowly retreating. And the same with Pavlovsk. The Ukrainians are slowly retreating. I think at night, some of them have escaped from these various buildings and probably made their way to the center of town to make a stand for the center of Pavlovsk. The Russians have not completely encircled the center of town, and the Ukrainians may actually be trying to flank the Russians here. but the Russians have successfully cut off the Ukrainians here and have forced them to come down through the north, which is hampering their efforts in, although they are still holding in a myriad, the Russians are slowly creeping into, but they have not broken through the lines. And again, there's fighting all across the front with no significant advances, though a town has allegedly fallen. This has fallen before. The Ukrainians are barely holding on as the Russians are pounding them in various positions. But the lines, despite 18 hours ago, the Times of India claiming the Russians have made a big breakthrough, it actually looks like they're repeating the same story from when they made the initial breakthrough in Kupiansk. This was a few days ago, yet the Indians are reporting this as yesterday. Again, I see this often where stories are repeated over and over again because they have nothing, because so many you out there only click the most sensational and often don't realize that it's an old story or a repeated story. I get that. I'm not trying to shame you. I'm just trying to point out that the media is being shameful in their reporting. But we look now on the overall map. We zoom out. And the Russians have made, that. Right. A bit of, that's Donetsk, 2/3. Zaporozhye, 2/3. Kherson, 2/3. So Lugansk is 99.9%, right? But once one, well, they're close to more like, let's say it's 30% and it's shrinking by about 1% per week. So that gives you an idea of progress. Whereas in Zaporozhye, it's more like 1% a month, and in Kherson, it's hardly moved in over a year. I think realistically, Russia is preparing to either write off the rest of Kherson, maybe even Zaporozhye. They may take another chunk, try to break through this road and cut this section in half, because let's face it, right, forcing the Ukrainians out is going to take longer than 6 to 9 months, and it will double the cost of their war going forward as sanctions start to take its toll. And if Putin, I think, is trying to gear up towards maximum leverage on what he feels, and of course the US and everybody else is trying to delay them. Zelensky, it's not happy because apparently France and Germany won't put pressure on Hungary, and other countries to increase their support for Ukraine. Now, it's affected a lot of deals for Ukraine, but we do know, right, Ukraine media has started to admit, right, unmanned air defense systems been confirmed. Okay. Now, Ukraine deal, they've made a step forward. They've agreed to localizations of the Gripen, so they're able to support weapons used by Ukraine and not just the ones used by Sweden. So, although really it's a NATO standard, all right, Ukraine doesn't have many homegrown weapons, but I think it wants a mount for its cruise missile, which is actually a British weapon, okay? Neptune, come on. We all know, okay, it's actually a German-British, but we all know it's a German V1 from World War II, redesigned by the British to be a cruise missile in the 50s. Okay? It was designed, Neptune, as an anti-ship missile. If you ever play, but it was soon replaced by the Harpoon. It's actually an outdated design. Now, Ukrainian forces did issue a air defense alert near Dnipro. The citizens were overnight, spent most of the night in shelters. They issued these warnings when MiG-31s were seen in the air. And why would they do that so early? Because the Russians follow patterns. This allows the Ukrainians to issue air alerts, knowing that if the Russians are going on this particular loop, in this particular direction, at this particular angle, they're going to hit Dnipro, okay? But it's the usual suspects. Dnipro, Odessa, Kherson, Mykolaiv have also been hit by cruise missiles. It's rare for Ukraine to admit this much. Usually it's much story. And again, though production will be significantly localized, there's a wide range of work, a large unit assembly, etc. But what you can take away from this is financing issues. Okay, Ukraine is having financial issues, remain limited until financial issues are resolved. So don't expect anything before the end of the war. Don't expect any. I think this will be quietly like all those F-16s that were supposed to go to Ukraine. Though there are some. Now Trump is again bringing up the root causes of this war. That Ukraine is now smaller. A lot of people are dead. I think we're getting to the point where we're waiting for Trump to drop the other shoe, which he hasn't, so we're going to move on. But it's not just about blaming Biden anymore. It's about blaming Zelensky. Zelensky went along with it. Okay? He just hasn't dropped, it's easy to say Russia invaded Ukraine. Yes, but Biden invited the war, and Zelensky went along with it. They could have ended this in 22. Remember that. It's like the government shutdown. Oh, the Republicans could vote to end the shutdown. No, they can't, unless they change the rules on the filibuster. And previously, you told the Republicans, and even voted against the rules you change yourself. But here's the most dangerous story of them all. The EU to establish the Ministry of Truth with the Guardian. Of all the people you want to partner with. Then American Trent says you're running in fear of your own voters. There's nothing America could do for you. If your democracy can be destroyed with a few $100,000 of digital advertising for a foreign country, then it wasn't very strong to begin with. And it's basically Orwellian. Yeah. Remember, they're complaining about Russian interference, yet they are not complaining about Chinese interference in England, France, Greece, Germany, Ukraine. Okay, there is definitely interference in the election of Zelensky. There was recently interference by Chinese and other foreign billionaires in New York funding Mondami openly. But Tarek Sissolamar, based in, I believe, a Turk based in Germany, has said the quiet part out loud, that they have seen the dark side of Zelensky, that they know he doesn't like elections, that he seeks to end elections until the end of the crisis, which may include the reconstruction era of Ukraine. He's not a benevolent leader. He claims he's only been forced to adopt dictatorial habits by emergency. In reality, he has exploited and encouraged this emergency since he got into office and antagonized Russia leading up to the 2022 invasion. including failure to adhere by any of the previous peace agreements. Now, people are going to dismiss as this is Russian disinformation, of course. That's your privilege. But remember, right now, Russia is courting half the world to come and join them in an anti-American alliance. And if you keep poking the bear, lifting the middle finger, snarling every time you hear Russia, every time you hear anything about Russia, if you cannot comprehend why they want nothing to do with you, you are not going to find, you're going to find half of Europe eventually gone, okay? Because they're going to get sick of the liberal establishment and their vote rigging, okay? Germany, Britain, France, they're all boiling over. Eastern Europe is head spinning. They don't know to support Ukraine or not. Poland is looking to overtake Germany. And right now, Poland is deeply divided, with the majority, I think 60%, against the war. And believe that the sooner it's over, the better. Well, the other 40% want to go to war. But as shown in every poll, those who want to go to war aren't the ones who will be fighting the war. They're all 60 or older. This is a growing disconnect. As society gets older, they want more and more war. You should be having children and raising families. Instead, they're hoarding resources and wanting to have good times and just don't care anymore. This is the nihilism of European liberalism. This is, they think end capitalism is upon us all. It's the end of the world. It's the boomers who've made civilization untenable and unreasonable, and they just don't get it. Now, for the generations in between, we cop a lot of flack from the millennials, but it's the boomers and the millennials who are the greediest generation who've made civilization untenable, because they want this grand liberal democracy, they want to make enormous wealth, but then they want to buy social credits with charity. Like, you created the conditions for poverty in the first place. Now, it's not because you're successful, it's only because you buy off government for government subsidies. You look at every industry in Europe that's successful. Government subsidies to build big trucks for government, to build big tanks for government, to build big helicopters for government. You look at some of the projects and they're absolutely wasteful. And some of the projects are 2 to 4 times what it costs elsewhere to make. So it's not the best. It's not the best product, and it's not the lowest bidder. This is the liberal establishment. They're just using fear of Russia, and have done for 60 years or 70 years now, to build up enormous wealth for themselves. They're war profiteers without the war. Now they got the war, they don't know what to do, because it's destroying equipment faster than they anticipated. Now, every time the Ukrainians concentrate, the Russians launch a missile. Now, you think the Ukrainians, once they see a missile launch, would scatter their troop concentrations. But a Ukrainian drone regiment near Kremensk was hit. They published footage, which we do not have, because it's on the Russian Telegram site. And Sputnik, for some reason, does not show the footage straight away, which again is weird. And you look up the footage, all you get is mostly the footage of the launch. It's a waste of time looking it up. It's a waste of... But apparently, according to some people, there is footage on sites, and they are usually on Odyssey and other sites. But we did manage to find one of them, and this was the power plant near Krantz. Not power plant, sorry. This is the thermal power plant, not gas. It's a thermal. Now it was hit. Again, this is this Ukrainians film this. They've seen and they hit the rail line as well. Some emergency vehicles responded. There you go. Transformer clearly on fire. More incoming, as you can see. So despite the fire, they're sending more drones in, which means they're hitting other targets behind it. But we don't see any explosions, so they could be falling debris or jammed. Or they could be falling observation drones. Clearly a lot of the Ukrainian facilities targeted. Boom, there it goes. So he's looking up in the air. He could obviously hear it. For the sake of copyright, not playing the audio. Probably paid it too long, but it was confirmed that 2 drones hit the power plant and another 2 hit the rail yard at Kremensk. Yet the Ukrainians would have you believe 503, and they shut down 406. It's pretty good. 415, sorry. 406 of the weapons, and you got the... But I mean, pretty good odds, right? If 1 in 5 get through and hit their target, it costs less, right? You think about it. 1 missile costs less than, they're hitting than sending a bomber, or fleet of bombers. They're doing pretty good. Even because don't forget, all shooting down, that's cost them millions of dollars to shoot down the drones. That's bullets. That's aircraft that are kept busy elsewhere. That's resources drawn off the front line. These drones draw resources off the front line. And if you understand, right, from the war from both perspectives, right now, Ukraine and Russia, Ukraine has failed to adapt to the Russian drone strategy. Ukraine led the way in 22 to 23 with drones, and had they kept that momentum by mid-24, they would have been in a good position to have negotiated an end, which they failed to do. And again, they're losing that window of opportunity to prevent further land loss, because Zelensky seems to think that all he has to do is join the EU, he'll have this massive army at his back, and he can march to Moscow and have the Chinese not invoke the but don't forget, it's also the North Koreans, the Mutual Defense Pact. Ukraine has been told, Chinese told the Ukrainians that they won't pressure Russia. They urge Ukraine to settle this peacefully now, and that if they cross the border into Russia again, they may invoke the Mutual Defense Pact and Chinese troops will aid the Russians. And Ukraine is having a sob. I'm sorry if this does not bode good for you. This is what happens when you get involved in foreign wars, especially when you're emotionally attached. You don't think clearly. You don't see that the best outcome is long past. Okay? Don't forget, you would have only lost 2, a narrow strip of land, and Crimea. Now, it's twice as big as it was, right? It's now 28%. From 14 to 28%. Now, it is slow going. There's no danger of Russia conquering Ukraine. Okay? America has even talked. Trump said, if they cross the red line, and I forget when it was, so it's going to be hard to look up, but there was talk of a red line, that if Putin crossed the red line again, that Europe and America would have to reconsider defending Ukraine and stopping them at the border. Right? So, containment. Okay? Putin knows the limits. Ukraine seems to know the limits. Everybody but the public seems to know the limits and seems to know. And what we see is obviously political theatre. That Putin is trying to leverage Kupiansk, Seversk, Polvosk to basically say, right, we'll give up claims to this land if you give us this land. And Zelensky says, no, 100% no, you have to give up all land, give me $1.2 trillion, the same talking points over and over again. So, where will it end? Now, like I said, until Russia is ready to end this, Zelensky remains protected. From the Russian perspective, he's incompetent. He changes leadership too frequently. He undermines his own commanders. He undermines his negotiation team. He's squandered millions. He's allowed millions to be stolen. Desperate to pay one deal, he's sold off arms to pay for aircraft because he thinks that these miracle jets will give him an air advantage over Russia. Because don't forget, Ukraine started this war with 700 jets and is down to less than 129, most of them foreign. Now, Russia started this war with 1,347 and is roughly hovered around the same amount because they've been able to replace their losses or repair damaged aircraft. Some of the aircraft haven't been replaced, but that's because some of the damaged aircraft are not being replaced or repaired yet, but they do have production to replace them, and they've produced more Su-35s in the meantime. So strategic bombers may be down by 12, but they have 24 more strike aircraft. And they have plenty of MiG-31s and MiG-27s, although 25s and others are being slowly replaced or upgraded. There is a lot of moving parts to the Russian military, which I think the mainstream media seems to forget. I forget if it's third or fifth, but India is overtaken, and Saudi Arabia is also building up its air force. So Russia is exporting a lot of aircraft to India right now. So they could build up their air force even more. There's also Iran. It is such a weird and complex situation where the media is telling us Russia is losing, yet our very eyes, the party's final command, is to ignore what you see. And a lot of people out there are doing that. And the more people who tune out too soon, the more people who get emotionally invested in Ukraine, seems to be directly correlated. So the shorter people watch the Ukraine war, the more emotional they get involved in the Ukraine war. Whereas the longer you watch, the more detached from the emotion, and you see the moving parts. And because you're allowing your brain to process. I think that's the difference. I think if you consume media TikTok style, watch a few minutes and flip through, you don't have a logical processing of what you're watching. You're just stimulating the brain, which is emotional. So consume more content, but of less people, and you'll see the Ministry of Truth and all this. They've been building this for quite some time. Then there's stories that I've missed. There's stories everybody's missed. And I'm not going to sit there 3 hours every day bringing up every single white paper from the Gates Foundation and going through the Rockefellers. It's the same people who funded World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War, Korea War, the Russian Revolution, the Rockefellers, the Schiffs, all of them. It's the same foundation, same 13 families over and over and over again behind the WEF. And not all of them are Jewish, yet some people, that we only know the names of a few of these 13 families. But we know the Rockefellers, we know the Schiffs are involved, we know that the Roosevelts are involved, we know that the Soros Foundation is involved, but you also have Klaus Schwab, you also have the allegedly Junkers, allegedly the founders of Pfizer and the founders of Nestle. And you also have a couple of other private foundations who are linked to Saudi Arabia, Finland, and etc. BlackRock, Larry Fink, etc. So yeah, it's always the same people for the last 125 years. And they are, and once upon a time, even the British Crown referred to them as the gold mafia, right? And until Europe gets its head out of its arse and stops thinking only in terms of GDP and starts thinking about long-term Europe remaining European and salvaging Italy, Germany, France, etc., by working with Eastern Europe, right? This side of the divide, okay, is the French and Germans and Italians are jealous of Poland, Hungary, Serbia, Romania. They're jealous of them. And it's weird. And the British, they don't want anyone to dominate Europe. This whole jealousy. You got more than me. No. You can't have one more. You can't have one more cupcake. I haven't got a cupcake. There's petty jealousy in Europe. And of course, Spain just wants Europe to become socialist, and so they support the Ukraine war because they see the erosion of capitalism and the faith in capitalism. Now, yeah, this economic model is poorly presented, poorly explained, and is constantly undermined by academics who falsely report the situation. And I think eventually we'll see a shift, a sea change in Europe. We see a rise of alternative political parties, but we haven't seen the second wave of new, young Gen Zers who are going to be independents and party free across Europe and you are starting to see it though. Put Europe first. Eastern Europe, particularly in Poland, you have nationalist movements who are saying, fuck Ukraine. They're not our ally. They're not our friend. Estonia, pretty much, and Lithuania, they're right now one of the staunchest. But Romania and Hungary and most of Europe are bitterly divided, with the 60% not really asserting themselves. And once they start to assert themselves, particularly young people, because it's the young people who are going to be sent to the war, and for what? To defend a nation that has spat on them, denied them work, planning to replace them with AI because they want to see their portfolios increase? And then laugh at them and just say, oh, just wait your turn? No. The right has to stop and consider, right? The left keep blaming the right. The left are the ones who are building AI. The left are the ones who are denying young people work. The left are the ones who cut young people out of jobs and replace them with foreign workers because they're cheaper. It's the left who undermine capitalism every time. It's just that most capitalists are not right-wing. And when you see that, once you start to see that reality, particularly amongst those who support Ukraine, look at Nestle, look at Pfizer, look at those who make up the WF, like Bill Gates. Look who they support. They don't support Trump. They don't support Orban. They don't support, what's his name in Germany? Not Germany, in France. Marie Le Pen's replacement in France. None of them are right wing. Okay, most of the billionaires in America and Europe are left wing. Now, the Reform Party, for the first time, is higher than the Labour Party, 34%. The Labour Party's fallen to 33%. If there was an election tomorrow, technically 34% of the seats should go to Reform. But they don't because of this first-past-the-post bullshit, where they manipulate the votes. And how do they do it? Labour goes out the night before, gets all the people, all the activists to get as many votes signed as they can, and then when they go to the counting room, all these boxes mysteriously get disappeared. And until the establishment is brought to heel and can no longer rig elections, you'll keep getting Macron and France. You'll keep getting Merkel and her clones in Germany. The liberal establishment is openly cheating now. And they're using the Ukraine war as a distraction. Now, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel. I thank you to all those who do. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon. Thank you to the few patrons I have. I really appreciate each and every one of you. And, of course, all my books. A couple of you have bought my books yesterday. Thank you very much. And hopefully more of you will today and tomorrow. And eventually, I may even get enough to buy sales to get a cup of coffee. Gosh, don't forget, you may get royalties, 70% royalties, Bezos says. But then they hit you with then you have marketing fees and taxes. So, yay, tomorrow I might have a coffee. So, for my coffee and gaming. Okay, see you in the next video. Don't forget all my links are in the link tree description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. And as always, see you in the next video. Bye for now.